North Korea's most arrogant general just respectfully sent his hand to the plane, and the next second signaled his subordinates to lift the SA-18 portable air defense missile and fired at the helicopter. He then led his troops with AK-47s to attack the Wonsan Air Defense Base, controlling the intercontinental missile launch site equipped with nuclear warheads. His goal was to bomb South Korea's Blue House. Subsequently, the general dispatched a black MiG-29 fighter jet to cross the 38th parallel into South Korean airspace. South Korean satellites detected an enemy incursion, and the Air Force Command immediately ordered two F-15 fighters patrolling near the 38th parallel to intercept. As the F-15 surrounded the MiG-29, the North Korean pilot immediately wobbled the aircraft to indicate defection. But just as the two South Korean fighters were escorting the North Korean fighter back to base, the command discovered another North Korean MiG-29 flying at Mach 2 over the 38th parallel. The commander sensed something was wrong and immediately ordered Pilot 1 to continue leading the North Korean fighter, while Pilot 2, Ania, rushed back to intercept the enemy near the 38th parallel. Meanwhile, two more F-15 fighters were dispatched for support. When Ania saw the other aircraft also wobbling, he assumed it was another defector and relaxed his guard, signaling the North Korean pilot to follow him back to base. Unexpectedly, as Ania approached the MiG, the North Korean pilot suddenly performed a lateral 360-degree roll and quickly flew towards the first defector's aircraft. Launching a HARM missile. The MiG-29 accelerated vertically, and Ania pushed the control stick to the limit to chase the enemy. As the F-15 approached from below, the MiG-29 dove and fired a 30mm cannon, successfully hitting the F-15's right wing and temporarily evading pursuit. Renyu and Lee first flew towards Seoul. The F-15 fighters that came to support quickly locked onto the enemy aircraft. But as the pilot prepared to fire a missile, the commander ordered all fighters not to open fire for the safety of city residents, only to contain. Once the MiG-29 flew over Seoul, the deployed air defense missiles would shoot it down. Thus, an F-15 flew directly in front of the MiG-29, using itself as bait to lure the MiG-29 out of Seoul's airspace. However, the North Korean pilot was not fooled and recklessly flew towards downtown Seoul. Not satisfied, the MiG-29 lowered its altitude, zooming through Seoul's streets, heading straight for South Korea's tallest building, the 63 building. The North Korean pilot piloted the MiG-29 fighter jet, bombing and strafing the city center. Hwang Haorui quickly ascended, preparing to escape, while two South Korean F-215 fighters quickly locked onto it. But just as the South Korean pilot was about to fire a missile, the MiG-29 suddenly performed a Cobra maneuver, climbing and maneuvering behind one of the F-215s, firing wildly at its rear. The pilot couldn't evade in time and was hit on the tail, losing engine power. As the fighter spiraled out of control, the pilot ejected the fire control officer from the backseat, while he himself, to prevent the F-15 from crashing in a residential area, gripped the control stick with all his might, steering the fighter towards an uninhabited area near the 38th parallel. Seeing no chance of survival for his teammate, the other F-215 pilot was furious, strongly requesting permission to fire. But the commander, to avoid war, still refused, watching the MiG-29 cross the 38th parallel back into North Korea. The ejected fire control officer, Daesun, due to a gust of wind, was forced to land in North Korea, where he was captured by North Korean forces. Soon, news of the North Korean general's coup spread worldwide, and the U.S. quickly dispatched B-2 bombers to support South Korea. However, just as the U.S. unilaterally bombed North Korea's Wonsan base, the South Korean commander finally stood firm in front of the U.S. commander, saying, "Aspen, we still have a crew member in enemy hands. We must rescue him before bombing." Thus, South Korea immediately dispatched an Air Force special unit aboard CH-24 transport helicopters and ammo-laden utility helicopters to North Korea's Wonsan Air Force Base to rescue the captured Daesun. Meanwhile, Air Force pilot Ania and his comrades, piloting T-50 bombers and F-15 fighters, quickly took off. Their mission was to destroy North Korea's Wonsan Air Force Base and its missile silos after rescuing Daesun, to prevent missile attacks on the Blue House. To ensure the mission's success, the South Korean command also dispatched the 173 Psi AWACS for aerial command. However, as the two fighters crossed the 38th parallel, North Korea's base radar detected them. They quickly set up M190 anti-aircraft guns, targeting them. ANIA skillfully maneuvered the T-50 bomber, dodging all bullets perfectly, then quickly locked onto the Wonsan Air Force Base and pressed the button. Dozens of bombs fell, causing a massive explosion at the base. ANIA then targeted the hidden hangar at the Wonsan base, dropping an air-to-ground. Rocket. A South Korean pilot was desperately fleeing while North Korean soldiers pursued, firing wildly. Suddenly, he was hit in the shoulder and fell to the ground. In a critical moment, South Korea dispatched a C-4C transport plane, catching the North Korean soldiers off guard. After the missile strike, special forces rappelled down, successfully rescuing the injured Daesun. At this moment, the North Korean MiG-29 fighter that bombed Seoul the previous day took off again, targeting South Korea's F-15 fighters, firing 2 missiles. The pilot, Jian Zhuang, immediately retaliated with one. Subsequently, the two fighters engaged in a high-altitude chase, both pilots pulling their control sticks to the limit, using barrel rolls and spiral maneuvers to climb. As the fighters reached their altitude limits, the MiG-29's engine issued a warning due to power overload, while the F-125 took the opportunity to brake at high altitude, turning 180 degrees to face the MiG-29, which was then blown to pieces. Meanwhile, ANIA, piloting the T-50 bomber, finally located North Korea's Wonsan base's missile silo. But before he could drop bombs, North Korea's SAM-5 surface-to-air missiles locked onto him. 2 missiles shot towards the T-50 at Mach 3. ANIA immediately ascended and deployed chaff, creating a barrier behind the aircraft, successfully intercepting 1 missile. However, the other missile continued to pursue relentlessly. The North Korean general had already initiated the nuclear missile launch sequence. As the Wonsan base's missile silo cover slowly opened, ANIA ignored the missile behind him and dove straight for the silo. Unbeknownst to him, M193 anti-aircraft guns were already deployed on the ground, firing a barrage at ANIA, causing severe damage to the T-50. In the chaos, ANIA urgently locked onto the silo. And pressed the launch button. Although the silo was successfully hit and the Blue House crisis averted, the missile behind ANIA continued to chase. To shake it off, ANIA decided to take a risky maneuver. He pushed the accelerator to the limit, shooting straight up. At an altitude of 20,000 meters, ANIA suddenly shut off the engine, causing the fighter to lose power and stall at a 45-degree angle. The missile couldn't react in time and passed by the T-50, exploding in midair. ANIA then reignited the engine and successfully returned to base. One word: thrilling.